Today is all about relationships, as you know, and especially challenges in relationship.
What do you do when Adanna is mad?
Run.
I don't get it.
Run for your life. How do you schedule adult time with a baby now?
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
And we're live.
Are we actually live? Are you sure?
Okay guys, so this is the first time that we're doing this. Live streaming together, but live streaming to record a video. You ask us any questions that you want us to answer.
Do you argue in front of Keen? You see, that for example is a great one.
I'm getting compliments.
A cousin of mine is in Malaysia as well, by the way.
What is that cousin?
You don't know. Well, that was a fun live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We got a lot of great questions, and I think we're gonna try and, as usual, answer as many as we can.
Yeah.
So I would say we're just gonna go straight into it. How long were you guys together before David proposed?
We were together officially for 1 year, but I had known him for 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yes, 5 years actually.
I'd known David for 5 years.
Yeah.
We were friends for 4 of those years, dated for 1 year, and he proposed after that year. Do we think long distance relationships can work?
Well, I would say, given that we obviously had 1.5 years of long distance relationships, absolutely yes. Now, it obviously comes with a lot of buts and ifs and whatnot. I would say, of course, it depends on the time. I mean, it probably won't be able to go on forever, obviously not. It also depends on maybe the distance and how often you also get to see and talk to each other during the time, right?
Yeah.
Because we had, obviously, in our case, it was Kenya and Ireland, which was quite a bit of a distance, but we were able to see each other every 6 to 8 weeks, actually, which was great. And we did actually Skype every day, or WhatsApp or something, but we were in touch every single day.
It can work, but it does need 100% commitment from the both parties. You can't really venture into a long distance relationship with so much uncertainties. You have no trust. There's a lot of questions like, is he going to cheat on me? Where's our future? Who's going to move? All of those questions basically just highlight that the foundation of the relationship is not strong enough. But if you do have a strong foundation, definitely a long distance relationship can work.
Adanna, how did you know that David was the one?
I get asked that a lot, and people ask me as well, how can I know that my partner is the one? Personally, I don't believe in soulmates. I don't believe that you were predestined that one person on earth that's for you. For me, knowing someone is the one depends on how they treat you and how you feel being in that relationship. I knew he was the one because when I started the relationship with him, when I gave him the chance to be in a relationship with me, he treated me like a queen. He is a gentleman, and it worked out fine. I was happy and I felt valued and I felt respected, and it was mutual. That's how I knew David was the one.
Well said.
Do you guys argue at all, and do you argue in front of Kian?
Well, I think it's needless to say, in every relationship there are arguments and little fights. So of course, yes, we argue, we have fights, we have disagreements. We definitely try not to argue in front of Keen. I mean, yes, I don't know if you're out in the grocery store and you have a little like disagreement on what to get or something, obviously, but real arguments, of course, or fights, if you want to call them, we definitely don't carry out in front of Keen. Where it's possible, it's not a good thing, especially in the first few years for the children to see. Really, in the future, you could say maybe it's even part of sort of the raising them well and knowing just it's normal to have arguments, so it could even be okay. But I think for the foreseeable future, we will try to sort it out on our own.
I have never been so mad at David that I've questioned whether or not to continue the relationship or to go hours or a day without talking, because I know that some couples actually do that, where they have arguments in the same house and they can go by without even saying anything or speaking to each other. We've never actually done that. I say to David sometimes, I don't even actually remember the reason that we fought. So we could have an argument, the next day I literally cannot remember why we had that argument.
I'm very lucky.
So, and in terms of the way we argue, I'm going to be honest and say, listen, I'm very hot-headed. So when we started our relationship, of course, like the argument was probably me yelling or screaming or whatnot, but I can just honestly say that I've learned how to argue from David. Having conversations, talking things out and resolving things has really gone a long way in our relationship.
Arguments will always come up, but it depends on how you react. In the moment of the argument, by the way, right? So how you handle an argument itself, but also especially afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So of course, sometimes it's difficult. I understand emotions can be high. If you can't control your emotions like this, it's even more important to make sure that you react afterwards in the right way.
Exactly.
Right? I think the number one thing is really about self-reflection, right?
Yeah,
And I think, I know you talked about it at some point as well, but it's really important that before anything else, the first thing you should ask yourself after an argument, or if you have any problems with somebody, what did I do wrong? And then what could I do differently? That is the number one question. Everything, it's easy to blame others. It's easy to put it on something else or on circumstances. Honestly, it's very easy. Everybody can do that. Ask yourself those questions. And trust me, you'll be surprised by how many arguments and how better you feel afterwards, because you will realize there's always something you probably could have done differently as well.
And that's where the apology aspect comes in, because when you realize that you could have done something differently and you could have handled the argument better, it's important for you to swallow your pride and go and apologize.
Yeah.
Which is something else that I've learned from David. We've had an argument and then I come back to say, babe, I'm sorry.
And that must have taken her like 10 minutes to get to that point.
Yeah, Jesus, like fighting my pride. And we have another secret actually in our relationship when it comes to argument and apologizing, and that is a model that I developed.
Wow.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Adanna. Ooh.
It's called chores, and basically the way it works is we have to take turns in apologizing when there has been an argument. The reason why we've come up with this is when you have two people who have just had an argument and two of them are thinking, I'm not the cause of this argument, it's difficult for one person to come and say, I'm sorry. Whether or not you think that you were the one that was right, if it's your turn to call truth, you will call truth and we forgive each other and just move on. How has having Kian affected your relationship?
Obviously, having a baby in a relationship or bringing a baby into a relationship does of course affect it, right? I mean, there's no way to say that it doesn't. And in our case, of course, it's the same. That changes, of course, to the relationship that number one, you have to be ready for, prepared for, and just accept them. You can't actually, of course, know everything up front. The most obvious ones are, of course, the less time you spend as a couple, whether this is just literally sitting down talking about stuff and about talking with yourself, going on normal dates, going to the movies, for dinner, for example, is almost impossible. And of course, also having some intimate time with each other is also very important in relationships. So those are the obvious ones. And I think one element in particular in our case that I thought was very interesting and revealing in a positive way was the need for really good coordination and teamwork.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, in a normal relationship, and I mean a relationship without children, I mean, you might think you guys fit perfectly together, and you might, and you work very well together, everything is great, but actually, trust me, only when you have a baby, this is put to the test.
Yeah.
The way you have to now, split all the different things, whether it's during the day, during the night, of course, who does what, bottles here, nappies there, buying things, groceries, preparing food, it requires a whole lot of coordination and teamwork. I think the question stems from a point of, in some cases, kids having a very bad impact on the relationships of the couple, whether immediately or in the sort of after a couple of years. But for the relationship to survive this, you have to work well together, talk about things openly, and be very honest to each other.
And if I can actually add to what David has said from a different perspective, and this perspective is from staying at home like the 1 year that I did when I was on maternity leave, and that goes for a lot of women who have quit their career or are full-time stay-at-home moms. It could be very exhausting, trust me. You are working round the clock. I've done a video on stay-home moms versus working moms, so make sure you check that out. To be a stay-home mom is exhausting. Literally everything in the house is your responsibility. And it could be really, really tiring and mentally exhausting that when your spouse comes back and you're lying in bed at the end of the night, thinking about some form of intimacy could be really, really difficult because you're exhausted. And based on that, I've actually learned to ask for help and to accept help when someone offers. When I was home during my maternity leave, it took me a few months to realize I can't do this all by myself. So those of you that are on my Snapchat, you would have seen some of my friends coming to the house, helping me clean, helping me cook, helping me hoover the living room. I would get someone, even if I had to pay somebody for a few hours to clean the house. I would get my friends to watch Kian while I go out with David. And asking for help or accepting help doesn't make you less hardworking. It just literally saves your mental state.
How do you guys split your house chores, and how do you find a good balance?
Balance.
Well, depends on what you define as a good balance.
David, everything we do is a great balance, okay?
Right. Well, let's answer that question, Adanna.
I personally think it's equal. And equal doesn't mean 50-50. So you might do like XYZ number of chores, but the ones that I do, the 1 and 2 that I do, add up to the 5, 6, 7 that you do.
That doesn't make sense. Let's be real. Let's be real. Yes, if you look at maybe the things we each do or something, you could say, well, I do a few things more than Adanna, but also you have to also look at reality, right? I mean, the reality is that Adanna works very long hours in the hospital, including night shifts sometimes, including weekends sometimes, so she can go for 10 days working straight for about 12 to 14 hours each day. So meaning that, no, it's very, it's really reality. And so if I come home, of course, after work and I feed Kian and everything, I do that. Yes, of course, I might also do the kitchen a little bit in the evening, but it's just because I finished my work. Adanna's still running around saving people's lives. So again, no, so I don't think it really helps to just look at that. So I think honestly this is how you should do it as a couple. For me, there isn't really any sort of chore or any number of chores that each partner should do. So yes, maybe you could say I'm doing more chores than Adanna, but there's really no judgment behind this because it all depends on circumstances. And that Adanna is working equally hard at the same time. So
thank you.
That's true.
Thank you so much for watching, guys, and thank you for tuning into the Instagram live feed. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you, and see you in the next video.
Bye.
Mwah. Say bye in another language.
Tschüss. Au revoir.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Mwah.
Hey. And you take my breath away every time that I'm kissing.